The radio went silent at 12:17 a.m. Not static, not interference, just silence. First Lieutenant Daniel Harper lowered the handset slowly, as if it had betrayed him. Around him, the snow came sideways, thick, wind-driven sheets that erased everything beyond 20 yards. The Korean mountains had turned white and merciless. The temperature was dropping below zero, and somewhere in that blizzard, an entire enemy regiment was moving. Harper didn't know the exact number. Historians would argue later. Some said 1,000, others said more. What he did know was this: he had 38 men, 2 machine guns, and less than 100 rounds per rifle. By dawn, they might all be dead. This is the untold story of the man who held the line in a snowstorm, when retreat meant collapse and surrender meant disappearance. December 1950, Northern Korea. The war had changed overnight. After early victories, U.S. and UN forces pushed north toward the Yalu River. Many believed the war was nearly over. Christmas at home didn't feel impossible. Then, China entered the war. Wave after wave of soldiers poured through the mountains, striking at night, blowing bugles in the darkness, encircling entire units before they could react. Harper's platoon, 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry, had been ordered to hold a narrow mountain pass near a frozen ridgeline. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't famous, but it was the only escape route for a larger American force withdrawing south. If the pass fell, thousands could be trapped. Harper was 24 years old. He had a wife in Ohio, a 6-month-old daughter he had never met, and 38 men who were now looking at him for answers. The first flare rose just after midnight. It burned an eerie green against the snow. Then came the sound. Bugles, high, shrill, echoing through the valley. Men began shouting in Mandarin. Shadows moved across the ridgeline. "They're flanking us," someone yelled. Harper grabbed his field glasses. The storm distorted everything. Snow stung his eyes, but he could see enough. They were surrounded. "Hold fire," Harper ordered. His men looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Sir?" "Wait until you see them clearly. Every round counts." The wind howled. The enemy crept closer, using the storm as cover. Harper's radio operator tried again. Nothing. The battery had frozen solid. No artillery, no air support, no backup. Just the 39 of them, and a mountain full of enemies. The first assault hit the eastern slope. Shadows materialized through the snow, dark shapes rushing forward, rifles raised. Harper waited until they were almost on top of them. Now! The ridge erupted in muzzle flashes. Machine guns chewed into the white darkness. Rifle cracks echoed like splitting ice. The first wave faltered, then fell back. But not for long. They came again and again, each time closer, each time louder. A private next to Harper took a round through the shoulder. Another man's rifle jammed from ice in the bolt. Ammunition belts thinned. Harper crawled from foxhole to foxhole, steadying hands, redistributing ammunition, locking eyes with terrified 19-year-olds. "You hold," he told them. "You hold for the guys behind us. You hold for each other." He never mentioned holding for himself. By 3 a.m., they were nearly out. The storm intensified. Frostbite crept into fingers and toes. The wounded shivered uncontrollably. The enemy shifted tactics. Instead of charging, they dug in around the perimeter. Encirclement. They would wait for exhaustion, for cold, for despair. Morning would finish what bullets hadn't. Harper understood the strategy instantly. If they stayed pinned to the ridge, they would freeze and be overwhelmed at first light. If they attempted a breakout in the storm, they would be cut down in open snow.
There was one option left, and it was almost unthinkable. At 4:10 a.m., Harper ordered his men to fix bayonets. Some stared at him. "Sir? Charge?" He nodded once. "If we're going to die, we die moving." He didn't shout it. He didn't dramatize it. He simply believed it. Harper chose the weakest point in the enemy's perimeter, an area where gunfire had been lighter. He gathered every man who could still stand. The wounded who could fire stayed behind to cover them. The whistle cut through the storm. 30 men rose from frozen foxholes and ran downhill into white chaos. For a split second, the enemy hesitated. No one expected Americans to charge into a blizzard at 20 below zero. Rifles cracked, men collided in snow, bayonets flashed. It wasn't cinematic, it wasn't clean, it was desperate. But desperation can be momentum. Harper drove forward, shouting, firing, dragging men through drifts. They punched through the thin segment of the encirclement like a needle through cloth. Behind them, the covering fire held just long enough. By the time the sun crept pale and cold over the mountains, Harper's platoon, what was left of it, had linked up with retreating UN forces. They had held the pass long enough. Convoys moved south, artillery repositioned, thousands escaped. Harper lost nearly half his men that night. His name would never headline textbooks. The battle itself would be folded into the larger story of the Korean War's brutal winter retreat. But historians later confirmed something critical. If that pass had fallen hours earlier, the withdrawal might have been a massacre. One platoon, one night, one impossible decision. Harper returned home in 1952. He rarely spoke about the snowstorm. When asked, he would say only, "The men held. Not I, the men." That's how forgotten heroes speak. The Korean War is often called the Forgotten War, but wars are never truly forgotten by the men who fought them, or the families who waited. Courage doesn't always look like victory parades. Sometimes it looks like frostbitten hands gripping a rifle in the dark, choosing to stand when everything inside you says run. Because somewhere behind you, someone else is depending on that stand. History remembers the offensives, but it often forgets the frozen ridges where a handful of men decided the morning would come after all. And that is the untold spirit.